Nobody saw it coming. That is the honest truth. One day, the rap world is spinning on its axis, trying to make sense of what just dropped, and the very next day, the man responsible for all that chaos is standing on a stage in Mexico performing like nothing happened, like he did not just throw a grenade into the entire industry and walk away calm. That is Kendrick Lamar for you. That has always been Kendrick Lamar. While everybody else is reacting, he is already 3 moves ahead, already on to the next thing, already doing something that makes your jaw drop all over again. Welcome to Pop Showroom, where we bring you the stories behind the headlines. If you're not subscribed yet, hit that button right now because this story goes deeper than anything you've seen in the mainstream media. Let us rewind just a little bit so you understand the full weight of this moment. Like That did not just drop, it detonated. When that record landed, it did not feel like a song, it felt like a declaration of war. It felt like somebody finally decided to stop hinting and start saying exactly what they meant out loud in front of everybody with no apology attached. The rap community lost its mind. Social media went into full meltdown mode. Every phone screen in America, in Europe, in Africa, everywhere people love hip-hop was lighting up with reactions, breakdowns, theories, and debates. People were pausing it, rewinding it, dissecting every single bar like it was scripture. Who is he talking about? What does this line mean? Is this really happening? The internet was in a frenzy, and it did not slow down for days. And in the middle of all that noise, while the debates were still raging and the think pieces were still being written, Kendrick Lamar got on a plane. He flew to Mexico and he headlined AXE Ceremonia 2026 like the most natural thing in the world. Think about that for a second. Really think about it. Most artists, after dropping something that explosive, would hide. They would go quiet. They would let the music breathe and let the internet do its job. They would stay off the radar for a minute. Not Kendrick. This man stepped onto that festival stage in Mexico the very next day and performed in front of thousands of people with the energy of someone who had not just turned the entire rap landscape upside down. That takes a different kind of confidence. That is not regular artist confidence either. That is something deeper, something almost frightening in the best possible way. AXE Ceremonia is not a small show. People need to understand that. This is one of the most respected music festivals in Latin America, a place where culture lives and breathes in a way that is hard to explain unless you have felt it. The crowd at AXE Ceremonia is passionate, knowledgeable, and hungry. They do not come just to watch a performance, they come to feel something. They come to be part of something. And when Kendrick walked out onto that stage in Mexico, the energy that rose from that crowd was the kind that shakes the ground beneath your feet. Mexico showed up for him in a way that reminded the whole world that Kendrick Lamar does not just belong to one city or one country. His music reaches places that go far beyond zip codes and borders. What made this moment even more electric was the timing, because the truth is, nobody fully understood yet the scale of what Like That had just started. People knew it was big, people knew it was bold, but the complete ripple effect, the full chain reaction that record would set off across the rap world, that had not fully played out yet. So when Kendrick stepped on that stage in Mexico, there was this layer underneath the performance that you could feel without being able to name it. Something was happening, something bigger than just a festival set. It felt like the beginning of something historic. The performance itself was everything you would expect from a man who treats every stage like it might be his last one. Kendrick does not just show up and run through tracks on autopilot, he performs like he means it every single time, like the words he is saying matter more than anything else happening in the world that night. He moves with intention, he commands space. When he's in the middle of a verse, you do not look at anything else. You can't. There is a gravitational pull to watching Kendrick Lamar perform live that is hard to put into words, but impossible to deny once you've experienced it. The crowd in Mexico felt that. You could see it in the footage, in the way people were locked in, swaying, screaming every word back at him like those lyrics had been living inside them for years. And some of those lyrics had been. That's another thing worth talking about. Kendrick has fans in Mexico, in Colombia, in Brazil, in Nigeria, in the UK, in Australia, everywhere on this planet where music is taken seriously. His catalog runs deep, and those fans know it front to back. So when he would shift from something current to something from deeper in his discography, the crowd did not miss a beat. They were right there with him. That kind of connection between an artist and an audience across language and culture and geography is rare. It doesn't happen by accident. It happens because the music is true. It happens because what Kendrick talks about, the struggle, the identity, the pain, the pride, the hunger to be more than what the world expects of you, those are not just Compton stories. Those are human stories, and humans everywhere recognize them. But let us not get too comfortable with the warmth of all that, because the story doesn't stop there, not even close. Because while Kendrick was on that stage in Mexico, giving that crowd everything he had, the rap world back home was still simmering. The reactions to Like That had not cooled down. If anything, they were getting hotter. Because when a record like that drops, it doesn't just exist in isolation. It sends a signal. It asks a question. And that question was sitting in the air, unanswered, and everybody was waiting to see if anybody was brave enough to respond. The thing about Kendrick is that he has always understood something that a lot of artists miss. He understands that the music and the moment have to work together. You can't just drop a record without understanding the world it's dropping into, and you can't perform without understanding what that performance means in context. So heading to Mexico the very next day was not random. It was not just a booking that happened to fall on the calendar. Everything Kendrick does has weight to it. Whether it was a deliberate statement or just the move of a man so confident in his craft that he doesn't need to hide, the result was the same. The image of Kendrick on that stage in Mexico the day after Like That became its own story. It became its own message. And the message was clear. This man does not run. This man does not second-guess himself. This man does not wait for permission or approval or validation from the industry he has spent his career quietly dominating. He moves, he creates, he performs. He lets the work speak, and then he goes and performs the next night in front of thousands of people in another country and leaves them breathless. Now zoom out for a second and look at the bigger picture. 2026 has already been a year where the energy in hip-hop has been different. There's a tension in the air that people who follow the culture closely can feel. Old alliances are being questioned, new voices are rising. The question of who is the best, who is really holding the culture up, who is being real versus who is just performing realness, those conversations have been getting louder and louder. And Like That landed right in the middle of all of that, like a stone dropped into still water. The ripples are still spreading. And Kendrick, the man who dropped the stone, is in Mexico, on a stage, performing for a crowd that is electric with love for him, singing his words back to him in accents shaped by a different continent, a different language, a different life, but the same feeling. That is the power of what real music can do. It doesn't need translation. It doesn't need a PR campaign or a brand deal or a carefully managed social media rollout. It just needs to be true. And Kendrick has always been true. There's also something else worth sitting with here. The fact that AXE Ceremonia exists, that a festival of that size and reputation is booking artists like Kendrick Lamar, says something about where Latin America sits in the global music conversation right now. The culture down there is not waiting for the rest of the world to catch up anymore. They are setting the table. They are creating the moments. And when you have an artist like Kendrick choosing to show up at a festival like that, on a day like that, the cultural statement that makes is enormous. It says that hip-hop is everywhere. It says that the best artists in the world see Latin America not as an afterthought, but as a place where real music gets the reception it deserves.
The crowd that night did not treat Kendrick like a visiting act passing through their city. They treated him like he belonged there. And maybe that is the realest thing about all of this. Great art belongs everywhere. It belongs to everyone who needs it. And that night in Mexico, thousands of people needed exactly what Kendrick was giving them. By the time the set was over, the footage was already spreading online. People who were not there were watching on their phones, sharing clips, adding their own commentary. The combination of Like That still being fresh in everyone's mind and this Mexico performance landing on top of it created this perfect storm of attention. Kendrick was everywhere at once. In the music, in the conversations, on the stage, in the culture. And the rap world had to reckon with that, because when you are in the middle of a moment this big and the person at the center of it is not shrinking or deflecting or trying to manage the narrative, when they are just out there living and performing and moving with this level of calm confidence, it changes the way people perceive everything. It makes the music feel even more powerful. It makes the statements feel even more deliberate. It makes you understand that you are not just watching an artist having a hot moment. You are watching someone operating at the absolute peak of what they are capable of. That is what Kendrick Lamar did. He dropped something that shook the rap world to its foundation, and then he flew to Mexico and performed in front of thousands of people the very next day like a man completely at peace with who he is and what he has done. No hiding, no deflecting, no damage control. Just art, just music, just the work. And somewhere in that combination, in the Like That record and the Mexico stage and the timing and the crowd and the footage spreading around the world, history was being made in real time. Not the kind of history that gets announced with big press releases and award ceremony speeches, the quiet kind. The kind that people talk about years later and say, "Remember when that happened? Remember how it felt? Remember how nothing was quite the same after that?" That is what this was. And if you were paying attention, even just a little bit, you could feel it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this situation, so please share your opinions in the comments. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to stay updated on this story.